accounting firm. And today I want to talk to you about what every senior needs to know. Now, this is something that we get asked all the time by our clients because it's really important for everybody who is 55 or older to know this stuff. And I think if more people knew about these things, there would be a lot less confusion and a lot less problems for people as they enter retirement. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing that I want to talk about is taxes. Taxes are important to understand because the more money you make, the more tax you're going to pay, but you don't necessarily have to pay more tax just because you have more money. There are ways that you can structure your income and structure your investments so that you pay the least amount of tax possible. It doesn't mean you avoid tax, but you do want to pay the least amount of tax possible. So whether you reworking and earning income or you retaking money out of your investments, like your RRSP or your TFSA, you need to make sure you have some kind of plan for how you're going to pay the least amount of tax possible. That's why it is really important to speak to a financial advisor or a tax professional so that you can get help with figuring out how to make sure that you're repaying the least amount of tax possible. Now, most people, when they think of tax, they think of the CRA and they think of income tax and they think of capital gains tax. But really, there are other types of taxes that you need to be aware of as well. For example, if you own a home, you're probably paying property tax. If you own a vacation property, you're probably paying another property tax on that. And if you own a car, you're probably paying car tax. Now, all of these different taxes should be factored in when you're rethinking about your overall tax situation. The next thing I want to talk about is CPP. Now, CPP stands for Canada Pension Plan, and it's run by the government. It's a pension plan that everybody who works in Canada contributes to when they're working, and when you retire, you get to take money out. Now, there are different rules around how much you get out and when you can take it out, but essentially, when you contribute to CPP, you pay a certain percentage of your salary into this plan. And when you retire, you can start taking money out. You don't have to start taking money out at any particular age. You can start taking money out whenever you want. You could take it out at 60. You could take it out at 65. You could take it out at 70. All of those different decisions have a different impact on how much money you receive each month. Now, one of the things I always tell people to think about when they're redeciding when to take CPP is what is your life expectancy? If you have a family history of living into your late 80s or 90s, then maybe it makes sense to delay CPP because you'll get a higher payment that way. But if you have a family history of not living that long, then maybe you want to take it earlier because you might not be around to collect it for that long. But whatever you decide, you should definitely speak to a financial advisor so that they can help you crunch the numbers and see what is going to be best for you. The next thing I want to talk about is old age security, which is a benefit provided by the Canadian government for people over the age of 65. It is intended to provide a basic level of income for people who are no longer working. The amount you get depends on a few factors, including your age, your income, and your marital status. Now, OAS payments are not taxable, which is great, but you do have to make sure that you apply for it. You can apply for it up to 3 months before your 65th birthday. So it's important to keep that in mind because you want to wait too long to apply for it. Otherwise, you're not going to start getting paid until much later. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is healthcare. Now, healthcare is important because as we get older, we tend to need more medical care. We also tend to have more medical conditions. And that means we need to have a plan in place for how we're going to pay for all of this extra medical care.
Now, most people in Canada have health care through their province.
This is publicly funded health care. However, there are some gaps in provincial healthcare coverage. For example, dental care, vision care, and hearing care are not covered under provincial health care. So you need to make sure that you have some kind of plan in place to cover those costs. Now, if you're not able to afford private insurance for things like dental care, vision care, and hearing care, there are government programs that can help you out. For example, there's the dental care program, which helps people with low-income access dental care at a reduced cost. And then there's also the assistive devices program, which helps people with disabilities purchase things like wheelchairs and walkers and hearing aids at a reduced cost. Okay, The next thing I want to talk about is estate planning. Estate planning is important because it allows you to ensure that your loved ones are taken care of after you pass away. It also allows you to minimize the tax that your loved ones will have to pay when you pass away. Now, there are a few things that you need to consider when it comes to estate planning. First, you need to have a will. A will allows you to specify how your assets will be distributed after you pass away. You also need to consider what will happen to your debts. Who is going to be responsible for paying them off? And then finally, you need to consider what kind of power of attorney you want to put in place. A power of attorney allows you to designate someone to make decisions on your behalf if you become unable to do so yourself. Now, you don't have to have a lot of money to have an estate plan in place. It's really something that everybody should do, and if you don't do it, then your province is going to have a set of rules that they follow when you pass away. And those rules may not align with what you would want. So it's really important to have a plan in place so that your wishes are carried out. Now, speaking of estate planning, the next thing I want to talk about is probate. Probate is the legal process of distributing a deceased person's assets. Now, probate can be a lengthy and expensive process, so it's something that you want to avoid if possible. One way to avoid probate is to put your assets in a trust. A trust is a legal entity that holds assets for the benefit of a beneficiary. Assets held in a trust do not have to go through the probate process, which means your loved ones will receive your assets faster and they won't have to pay any probate fees. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is long-term care. Long-term care is important because as we get older, some of us may need help with daily activities like bathing and dressing, and that's where long-term care facilities can help. They provide 24-hour care and support for people who need it. Now, long-term care can be expensive, so it's something that you want to plan for in advance. One way to pay for long-term care is to purchase long-term care insurance. Now, long-term care insurance can help cover the cost of care if you ever need it. Another way to pay for long-term care is to use your savings or your investments. However, this can be a significant financial burden. So it's really important to plan for it in advance. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is retirement income. Retirement income is important because it allows you to maintain your standard of living in retirement. Now, there are a few different sources of retirement income. The first is Canada Pension Plan, which is a government pension that everyone who works in Canada contributes to. The second source of income is Old Age Security, which is another government benefit for people over the age of 65. And then the third source of income is private pensions. Now, private pensions are less common these days, but if you do have one, it's a great source of stable retirement income. In addition to these three sources of income, you may also have income from other sources such as rental properties or investments. Now, when it comes to retirement income, it's important to have a plan in place. You need to make sure that you have enough income to cover your expenses. You also need to make sure that your income will last throughout your retirement. And that is why it is important to speak to a financial advisor so that they can help you develop a retirement income plan that meets your needs. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to retirement income is that they do start taking CPP early enough. Remember, you can start taking CPP at 60, 65, or 70. And delaying CPP can have a big impact on your retirement income. So it's important to crunch the numbers and see what's best for you. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to help.